as human beings, our base structure is that we seek to find patterns. We are always looking in the outside world for patterns. And then when we are thrust into something like building a business and we've got all this data, all of these different moving parts, it's really hard to latch on to see if there's any pattern in all of this chaotic movement. And so finding the ways to bring this down is a means of survival for not only people with ADD, but as our basic human instinct is to simplify and bring things into their core components. And this is, from what I've seen that you do and working with other people, is be able to bring this down into manageable bite-sized pieces. So I do not feel like every time I'm stepping into my business and opening my Excel spreadsheets that I'm at the base of Mount Everest and I've got this. Now,
Yeah,
every strategy, every problem is like a foothill. It's manageable because it's condensed and confined and has borders around it. It's not going to bleed into the other areas except when we acknowledge that it does. And that's the all of these things are interactive, but we can deal with them. Your system has allowed us to now deal with the idea of customer or product or strategy or risk, all of those things. I can deal with those individually and know that everything is still also being attended to.
exactly. That's a great explanation of it, because when I take this to anybody who is running a business, most of them say, and I say all of them say, just like in my testimonials, they say, I don't know what I would do without this. Now I think of business and I think of these 10 building blocks, and it makes me realize, oh, I have a question about, I just go through those categories. And if I have one question about every one of those categories, then I'm going to be pretty thorough in my examination of a problem or a challenge. And it makes you really quickly become creative to come up with what needs to be done and then prioritize that. So it becomes it's just a tool, and it's a mental tool. That's why we call it a mental model, right?
So, and this is a good thing. I look at myself in the kitchen,
Right.
and people say that they're bad cooks and all the rest. I think that I'm a capable cook, and I'll tell you why. Because I actually learned how to make rice.
Right.
That is a tool and a skill set that once I anchored it and learned it, I was able to put aside, and I can exercise that without a lot of thought now. I can
Right.
also make a stir fry and understand what has to come in first in order to get the aromatics to come out, to make the flavors come out, and all the rest. But each one of those things, from chopping of my ingredients and all that, each one of those processes took refinement to get to the point where I am now. When I first started, trying to make a stir fry and rice dinner was a nightmare because I didn't know. I had the wok going full fat. I've got to put the water on for the rice to boil. I had no process. I had no understanding that each one of those sub things, from the chopping of the vegetables right through to the rice making to the final seasoning, there is a process. And if we can have the luxury to look and learn those things in isolation,
Yeah.
then we
How
can
much how much time does it take to cook a pepper versus a piece of a
of meat
zucchini?
versus a steak. Well, and all of that starts to come through. And now the fact is, I don't think about any of this anymore. It is automatic because those systems were established, and now I can just step into it. And
You have
in
a
the
process in your head now. The
That's right. And with the building blocks, this is the process that we're doing. It is going to be uncomfortable as you start to struggle through this new way of thinking about things. But as you become more familiar, and again, it's about familiarity. If you're not spending the time utilizing these tools, if you're not spending the time revisiting it and going over it, then it's not going to anchor into your memory circuits and become part of your basic operating procedure.